Hello everybody, if you like this video, please consider donating to us on Patreon. We want to keep on making education free and available to everybody, no matter what, so this is a perfect way to do that. There are different tiers and different ways you can donate. If you did enjoy this lesson and you've got some money to spare, please consider donating on Patreon. In this lesson, we're going to have a look at the importance of the early primaries and caucuses that are held in the presidential election. It should be noted that in recent years, especially, earlier primaries, the earlier primaries that take place have become more and more important for a number of reasons that we're going to talk about. And we're going to take a look at two main case studies. We're going to start by, we're going to start by looking at Iowa, and then we're going to have a look at New Hampshire. These are two primaries that are effectively the earliest of the two primaries, and we're going to have a look at some of the important trends and details that have happened in the last few presidential elections, in the last few presidential primary seasons from the last few years of elections. So let's start by having a look at Iowa. Traditionally, Iowa holds the first caucus. Normally, the first caucus attracts quite a low turnout. Generally, that's seen as the general trend. However, in recent elections, the Iowa primary and the Iowa caucus, more importantly, has proven to be very, very important. For example, in 2008, the Iowa caucus proved very important in both Republican and Democrat races. Don't forget, 2008 was a year where both parties were holding primaries. I'm going to word it a little bit different. We're picking candidates, shall we say? Because let me just do this. Okay, because this 2008 was the last year of George W. Bush's administration, and so therefore there were it could have been up to anybody who was going to be the nominee for both parties. There are primary races. So, for example, in the this year's 2020 election, Donald Trump was the Republican nominee, but he was presumed to be the Republican nominee because he's the president and he's trying to stay on for another term. They do have primary races, however, everyone just votes for the president. Okay, but the cases like 2008 and 2016 are examples where the president cannot run for another year, so there's a lot more importance to the primaries for both parties, if that makes any sense. So this is why 2008 and 2016 were both years where Democrat and Republicans had had a number of candidates for their primary runs, for the primary seasons. Typically, if it's an incumbent president running again, not very many people run against them from their own party. It's normally just one party, which is why we've seen lots of Democrat primaries this year, but there's not been anyone really of any worth or note trying to run against Trump. So the GOP caucus in Iowa was won by Mike Huckabee. He won 34% compared to Mitt Romney, who won just 25%, and John McCain, who won only 13%. Now, what's important here is, despite the fact that Mike Huckabee won 34% and was the presumptive frontrunner, and Mitt Romney was closely behind, close second, John McCain came trailing with only 13%. In the end, John McCain became the nominee. So John McCain became the nominee, which is very important, very interesting. That frontrunners tend to change and shift depending on the time within the season. In Iowa during the Democratic caucus, however, it was Barack Obama who won 38%. Okay. So Barack Obama won the most in the Iowa caucus, but this is very interesting since Hillary Clinton was the presumptive frontrunner during at this stage in the primary season. She only came third in total in the Iowa Caucus, and it was Obama's success that was seen as one of the greatest upsets in history of presidential primaries and caucuses. So it was a huge upset. So Obama wasn't expected to win Iowa. Obama not expected to win in Iowa. Don't forget also, we're talking about the primary process. Okay, this is the process to pick the candidate. So if I say not expected to win in Iowa, I'm not talking about the general election or the electoral college. I'm talking about just the states that pick delegates for nominating at the national convention. So Iowa in 2008 was a very interesting case. We have on the Republican side the eventual nominee coming third with only 13%, and we have on the Democrat side the eventual nominee winning. However, at the time, the eventual nominee wasn't expected to be Barack Obama. The front runner was Hillary Clinton. When we look at New Hampshire, it was a commonly held belief that if you didn't win the New Hampshire primary, you couldn't win the nomination. This is just, due to trends. Oopsie daisy. Oh, this always happens. There we go. This is just due to trends, historical trends. Generally speaking, if you didn't win New Hampshire, you don't win the nomination. However, in recent years, as we've noted how important these early elections, these early primaries are, in recent years, this theory has been proven wrong. So, for example, Bill Clinton in 1992, George Bush in 2000, Barack Obama in 2008, and Joe Biden in 2020, this year, all of them didn't win New Hampshire, but they all won the nomination. Okay, so that's very interesting. We also find that in 2016, Trump did win New Hampshire. Okay, this is just a little bit of a bit of evidence against the theory that New Hampshire that you don't have to win New Hampshire to win the nomination. We've got a number of cases where we have Clinton, Bush, Obama, and Biden all not winning New Hampshire but winning the nomination in the end, and then Trump is the outlier there who did win New Hampshire. Okay, so front runners are sometimes seen from the New Hampshire primary. So this is why the New Hampshire primary is so important. For example, the front runner in 2020 at this time was Bernie Sanders. Arguably Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders won delegates effectively all the way up to Super Tuesday. We've talked about this in an earlier video, that Bernie Sanders was the presumptive nominee and was the front runner all the way up to Super Tuesday when Joe Biden took over. Okay, so this is when Joe Biden caught up. Joe Biden caught up. And there are a number of theories for this. There are a number of reasons why this may have happened. Some argue, some Bernie supporters would argue that it was because Elizabeth Warren didn't drop out. She decided to stay on and therefore sapped some of the votes from Bernie Sanders. Arguably, if she had dropped out earlier, Bernie Sanders might have gotten all the votes that she would have gotten and therefore may have won. However, this is a sort of counterfactual history, so we can't really decide either way. Effectively, the front runner, you should never really be confident in the front runner in these early primaries, because they don't seem to be they seem to fluctuate in terms of who is the front runner. So this is especially true in recent years. So as we've seen in this lesson, we've looked at Iowa and New Hampshire. We've looked at generally seeing how important they are in trying to pick a front runner for the election. Iowa being a very interesting example, and 2008 being a very interesting example, where we have the frontrunners not becoming the nominee, and the frontrunners not becoming the nominee again in this case as well, with Obama and John McCain eventually taking it. As we've already looked at in the last lesson or the lesson before, one of the most important parts of the primary season is Super Tuesday, and that's where a bunch of primaries all hold their votes, and that's where we start to see a clearer picture as to who is the real frontrunner and who is the most likely to win the nomination.